I used to think being needed meant I was a great leader, but the truth is, I was making myself indispensable so that I didn't have to face the person I was without my work. Hi, my name is Ashley Morena. I'm the host of the Ash to Dusk podcast, where we talk about everything in between the messy middle of life from hormones, leadership, entrepreneurship, motherhood, you name it. If I have experienced it, we're going to talk about it here on the podcast. Welcome. Okay, so before we dive into this topic around leadership, being needed, and how to let go, we need to catch up on life for a minute. So, our midweek moments typically have been checking in with each other, and we've started releasing episodes on Wednesdays that are more focused around leadership and entrepreneurship. And then Sundays, we're talking about everything else. Now, this past Sunday, I didn't release my episode on Easter. I was going to, it was about a 6 or 7 minute episode. And then I thought, nope, I'm just going to let it, let it be and not put it out there into the world. Because do you know, like what sometimes you know what you're trying to say, but you likely know it's not going to land. And so I thought we're going to take Sunday and just not put anything out there. So I also have been a little quiet on social media. And one of the things I've shared with you guys for a little while now is that I am a little burned out on social media, but specifically everything that I'm getting inundated with. And so the best place that you're going to get information from me, content from me, and keeping up with what's new in my life and things that I'm learning is by signing up for my weekly newsletter that goes out every Sunday and subscribe to the podcast. Both are completely free, and that's where you're going to get the most real version of myself. I have taken a little break from social media. I post very minimally, or I have someone on my team who's helping me with that. But it has been like such a breath of fresh air. I am doing things with my kids that I haven't done before or in a long time, hanging out at night. It's just been awesome. So, highly encourage you to do that. But one of the things that I haven't shared with you is, well, aside from my oldest turning 15, I'm not really quite sure how I'm old enough to have a 15-year-old, but here we are. I do, and it is so crazy to think about. But if you have followed me for some time, you know that two cats at different times have ended up at our back deck that we rescued. One is Mama and Sylvester. Mama came around first, and then Sylvester did later. Both have been around for a couple of years. Well, Sylvester decided to leave a little over a week ago now. And I finally posted a picture of him on Facebook, and somebody in the back of the neighborhood was like, hey, I'm pretty sure this is the cat. And sure enough, he's taken up residence at another home in the back of our neighborhood. Well, as sad as I am about it, Mama, the other cat, is devastated. I mean, she will not eat without him. She has just been a hot mess. Now, it's funny because when he first started coming around, she hated him. She would hiss at him, scratch at him, was like, I'm not sharing this home with you. Well, now they love each other. Well, she loves him, let's put it that way. And he's gone, and I don't know if he's going to come back. Maybe he will, but she's been devastated. And yeah, I don't even know what to do. I went to go get him actually. I like took food, and I thought, well, maybe he'll let me pick him up, or he'll remember me or know who I am. And I was able to get him, but then when I picked him up by the scruff, like on the top of his, neck, um, I think I scratched the bottom of his butt, like on a bush, and he hissed and scratched, and I got a nice scratch on my hand. So, needless to say, the cat saga still continues here at the Marina household. But hey, we're moving right along. So let's dive in. Let's dive in. I thought we would talk about this topic. So I did a recent episode on me running away from real life and putting all of my energy into work, that's where I have felt the most valued, and that sometimes I have felt as if I was failing in my personal life, so it was easier to focus on work where I felt more successful than I did at home. But there is something about work that I want to talk about a little bit more, because I know many of you are in leadership or you're a manager, and this is something you struggle with. You're so afraid to let things go because you'll feel like you're not needed anymore, and you feel needed, which makes you feel important and it makes you feel special, right? And so for me, not only did I tie my worth into work, I was also feeling like, well, because these people need me and they count on me, that made me important. So when I first started Project School Nutrition, which is a K-12 school nutrition consulting company. When I started that 6 years ago, I was a food service director in the school district that I was born and raised in. And I remember putting in my notice and feeling so much anxiety about the fact that I would not be showing up to work anymore, like Monday through Friday, like going to this district. And there was so much fear of the unknown. And I was excited, like I was really excited to start my own business, but I was also really nervous. And then I feel like God or the universe intervened because during COVID, which is when, I put in my notice right before COVID started. Then COVID kicked in. So then the district was like, oh my gosh, can we just hire you through your company to be our consulting director and you can still do your thing? And it was great, right? It was a really good thing. And then a couple other districts asked me to also be their consulting director. So I had a couple of years where it almost helped me wean off of that like feeling of being needed all the time. I know that that sounds crazy, but when you put your entire identity into work and people do count on you, the thought of walking away from all of that into an unknown territory and not knowing if that was going to ever exist again was very scary to me. I was very nervous about not getting in my car and driving to work every single day and seeing the people that I loved working with and solving the problems of a cooler was down or so that like now I kind of don't miss certain things. It's kind of a running joke, but in the moment I was so afraid. And recently I heard John Maxwell say he got to a place, John Maxwell's in leadership. So if you don't know who he is, oh my gosh, he's like the leadership guru. But a video clip came up and he was saying like, I I didn't train, I didn't promote anybody until that person I was going to promote has already trained their replacement. So essentially, it just means that leadership isn't about you being the hero. It's not about you. It really is about bringing up other people into leadership. It is about hopefully training someone who is going to be better and do better than you. And that there doesn't need to be scarcity around, is there going to be a job for you or not? That is part of leadership. Like, we need to be cultivating that. And it was just such a good reminder, but also had me thinking about, wow, like I was so afraid a few years ago of letting everything go. Now I'm so glad I did. And I have a much smaller team that I manage at Project School Nutrition. I have my 2 dietitians and an assistant, and I'm still needed, right? But what I've also realized is for the first 5 years of my business, so I've been in business for 6 years. So I would say for nearly the first 5, well, let's just say a solid 4 years, but probably took me about almost 5 years. I was so afraid of letting things go. I felt like I had to do it all. Because when I first started my business, it was just me. And then I had a consulting dietitian that worked alongside me, but I didn't have her full time or anything like that. It was just more of a consulting thing. So I had to do everything at the beginning completely by myself. But then as Project School Nutrition grew, I wasn't letting things go. And part of it was just because I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. And a part of me was afraid to let things go because I'm like, this is my business now. Like, this is like my name. And I don't have the school district funds to rely. Like, this is a big deal, right? So a little over a year ago, I sat down with my team. It's actually going on 2 years now. And when I brought my assistant on, who's like one of my dear besties, her name is Sarah, and she worked with me in my previous school district. So when she came on board, we were talking, it's like we needed systems in place. And it was something that her and I both worked so well together in our school district because we had systems in place. But at PSN, we didn't have that because I have just been in survival mode for the first 5 years. So we sat down together and we started looking at what do we need to have in place, standard operating procedures. And then we worked with the dietitians to come up with, okay, how do we want these ingredients to look, and recipes and X, Y, and Z, you name it, there's a standard operating procedure for it. And today I had my team was over to work in person, and we kind of looked at each other and said, my goodness, we are working for the first time months and months ahead down the road. We are finally getting there. And, but it started well over a year ago of getting these systems in place and figuring out who was going to do what and how it was going to get done. And now here we are seeing the benefits of that. But in the moment, it actually feels like more work. And it's very, scary, for the lack of better vocabulary, because you kind of don't know what you're doing. And so what I want to say, though, is that by implementing new processes, I have been able to delegate things to my team where they do things better than I do, right? Like Sarah has her things that she's great at. Liv is killing it on social media. Em is handling our customer service side of things like rock star level. I mean, they each have their thing that they excel in more than I do. And that's awesome because they can take that and run with it. And I don't become the bottleneck. And that's something I've learned a lot about in entrepreneurship is, where is there a bottleneck? Where do you slow things down from flowing? And I want you to think about that in your role as a leader. Where do you slow things down because you're doing the work that maybe somebody else should be doing? Now, that doesn't mean I'm not doing the work. I'm still doing plenty of it, but my work is focused now on generating revenue and growing a business. That is my focus. So if any task that I'm doing has to be focused on that, or it's not a task that I should be doing anymore. And that's been a really hard concept for me to wrap my head around. Because again, I was just so used to doing everything, and I like to stay in the know. And I do think that that's also important to note. While I've been delegating a lot of responsibilities and changing my role, I also like today I was and I'm like looking this way at the screen behind the camera. But like today, I was in there doing menu work for the first time in a while, but it keeps me on my toes. And I think as a leader, it is important to immerse yourself in the work every once in a while so that you don't lose sight of what your team is going through. But they don't need you to micromanage everything. And just because they don't come to you needing you for every little thing doesn't mean that you are not valuable as the leader. Because without the leadership, without the vision of where this business is going to go or your department is going to go, then, there's not going to be tasks to keep performing if someone isn't going to keep it growing. And leadership is important for that. And also to raise up new leaders. We desperately need that. And that is one of the primary roles of anybody in a leadership role, is that you're creating new leaders. And that takes a lot of time, building relationships and just having meaningful conversations and connections with your team. And I know that being that go-to person is powerful, but it's a trap. I want you to think about it. If they have to come to you for every little thing, they don't feel empowered to do their work. And if they don't feel empowered, or they don't feel that they have the ability to do it without permission, then they're not going to stay around. And the key to growing a successful business is also retaining employees, because we all know, if you're a business owner in some sort of leadership form, we understand that it costs a lot of money to replace employees. So we want them to stay around, and we want that culture. But for me, I want to build a culture where my team feels as if they can make a decision and run with it and trust their gut and understand the mission and the vision and the core values of the business, and not need me to have to give every little direction. Okay, so now I want to present you with a challenge, because you know that I like to push you a little bit. For this next week, I want you to start tracking all of the things that you do for your job. Write them all out. Just start making a list. If you do it, write it down. And even if it's something so silly, like you had to pay the bills, like you had to open mail for your job, or you had to do a social media post, you had to make a phone call, whatever you're doing, I want you to track those tasks. And then I want you to do that for at least 2 weeks. Do it in a spreadsheet. Like you could just do a Google Sheets, put the date down, write, what you did. And I actually highly recommend doing it in 30-minute blocks. It seems like a lot, but I actually had my team do this. So I did it and my team. And here's what I found out. After we had all entered in our task for 30-minute blocks for 2 weeks, I was able to take all of that data and I put it into AI and had AI analyze it for me. And it was so abundantly clear who was doing more in one area than somebody else, who was more, attention to detail versus creative. And you know how AI figured this out? It was based off of how my team entered in that data. So based off of how descriptive they were with the tasks that they did, it was so wild that AI was able to pick up on the strengths and weaknesses of each team member just by that. So you could start by doing this for just yourself first, or if you manage a smaller team, asking your team to do this. And at first people will be like, are you serious? Like this is going to take a long time. You just say, no, like I genuinely want to see how our workday flows and where we can change things up. That was a starting point. And then from there, I was able to free up time in everyone's work week to the point in which one person on my team manages the social media now, and that was something that I used to do. Another person on my team is doing my newsletters, and I am able to also do this podcast now, which when I first started doing the podcast, I was doing it like on the weekends or at night, and I really wanted to get to a place where I could take a couple of hours out of my work week to be able to do this, because ultimately this is now part of my job and this is something that we are growing into and being able to tap into more of the personal growth space. So I didn't want to be adding on work that meant we had to go into nights and weekends. My team works a 4-day work week and I wanted to honor that. But just by doing that time study and by acknowledging and recognizing who was doing what, and then also taking that and creating standard operating procedures, we were able to save ourselves a tremendous amount of time and be able to do things a lot more efficiently. And this was like the first year that I had had all of my contracts done in such an early time period, booked all my speaking engagements. I mean, so many things at this time of year typically brings a lot of stress to me. I didn't hardly feel it because, well, one, I had somebody else who was learning how to do it and was able to take a little bit off of my plate, but also because we had saved so much time based off of the data that we gave to AI essentially. So that's what I want you to do this week. If you're really feeling burned out with your work, you're feeling like everyone has to come to you, you like it, secretly you really want them to keep coming to you because you're afraid of what people will think if they don't need to come to you as much, I want you to let that go for a minute. And I want you to think about how much more of an impact you can make if your time was freed up from doing tasks that are meant for our team members, the ones who are the experts in maybe the attention to detail or efficiencies, and really step into your leadership role in building up new leaders. And that's really the sweet spot of leadership, and it's one of the most rewarding things. All right, so if you take anything away from today's episode, it is that you don't have to have someone coming to you all the time to feel needed at work. It's okay to let go, empower your team, and build up other leaders. It's one of the things that I'm most proud of the work that I've done, is seeing that all the different people who have went from being a kitchen worker to a manager to now a director, and just seeing people blossom and flourish. It's like, okay, like now they can pass it on to somebody else and we can kind of keep this going. One person can't do it all, and we always hear it takes a village to raise children, but I think it takes a village to make an impact and to make real change for our future. So, all right, my friend, if you haven't already liked, shared, or subscribed to the podcast, please do so. It is growing and I'm so grateful to that, but it really does help get this podcast into the hands of the person who is ready to grow and start walking toward their purpose. But until we meet again, my friend, thank you so much for being here. Keep your light burning from ash to dust.